She walks, she walks. I long to be where she stands. She speaks, she speaks. I'm speechless at her hand. Her eyes have often caught me staring. She turns away. I can almost hear her laughing. I saw no reason to care. I saw no reason for any of this until I saw her standing there. She's met me where my heart is.
I'm speaking to Karen Hamer and Nabil Ayoub. Karen is a founder of Tin Roof Productions with her husband Frank, and she's also produced a new musical play based on Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. And Nabil is playing one of the major roles in Pride and Prejudice, that of Mr. Darcy. Karen and Nabil, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you for having us.
This is not your first musical. You actually did musical versions of Sense and Sensibility, also Anne of Green Gables, and now you're doing Pride and Prejudice. And Pride and Prejudice was a production several years in the making, from what I understand.
You know, I think the classic artist to say is it took me forever, all my life, but I'm not going to say that. So it would have to be much better if that was the case. This is really a second go-round from a show that I wrote 5 years ago.
Okay.
And it took about 3 years to write that show.
Yeah.
And so I think I've lived with it for about 8 years. And I knew once we went round the first time that I would bring it back again. The first time I put as much Jane Austen in as I could. I didn't really know how to write a play yet. So came out of that wanting to go back into it after doing Sense. And yeah, just really struggled actually to find a new way to write. I don't really like doing old work. And so eventually we came to this point.
I guess it goes without saying that you're a Jane Austen fan.
I suppose I must be. I never thought of it that way. I just knew that I liked the story. And the more, of course, I learned reading her diaries and letters and stuff about her. Yeah, I guess so. Although I don't know why I'm hesitant to say yes to that. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing that these works are still popular. They're making movies about it and over again. It's like every 10 or 20 years a new version of Sense and Sensibility comes out, or Pride and Prejudice, or one of the Jane Austen novels. Absolutely. It has lasting popularity. It's a great choice for a musical.
Right, and that's actually one of the reasons that we did it originally, is we were looking for a show that might sell, where we actually might have enough audiences to pay the bills. And so
yeah, well, that's a good thing.
So Pride, after I did Anne of Green Gables, then Pride and Prejudice was kind of a next obvious one.
Well, Nabil, you play Mr. Darcy. You were found in Victoria, BC, a beautiful place. You were performing up there, and now you've come to Colorado.
Yeah. It was a funny happenstance that just kind of fate came in to play.
Could you tell me just a little bit about your background?
Sure.
Up until now?
I'm originally from Ottawa, Ontario. And I went out to school in Victoria about 3 years ago for performing arts, and I just recently graduated, got a job in Victoria.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I got a job at the Parliament buildings as a historical interpreter playing Sir James Douglas, and it was part of the tour program. So anybody who went on a tour could see, a tour guide would take them through, and at one point in the tour there would be an interruption, and I would come in and give my speech about what I did for the history of British Columbia, Canada.
That's where we caught up with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
you were out on your anniversary.
Yeah, it was our 22nd anniversary. We have 10 children.
8 your own and 2 adopted from Ethiopia?
Well, we have 7 biological children and 3 from Ethiopia. And we just got away for the weekend for our anniversary, and I almost wasn't going to take that tour, My husband said, do you want to do it? And I thought, I'm tired. I've seen a lot of buildings. So we actually walked away, and then I literally stopped in my tracks and said, I'd like to take it. So we're glad we did.
Well, Nabil, I've been to the Parliament buildings in Victoria, and That's a beautiful place. So I'm assuming a great place to work. You can be the living history there.
Yeah, it was the best summer I've ever had so far. It was the most beautiful place to be, and the history is just great. And you meet so many people from so many different parts of the world, and you learn about their stories and where they're from as well, because people love talking about themselves. It's just what people love to do. And so I've grown so much from that. And I met Karen as well. So I feel really blessed, and I feel great to be here.
Well, tell me a little bit about the character of Mr. Darcy, and what part does he play in Pride and Prejudice?
The character of Mr. Darcy. Well, he's a complex person that I'm still wrapping my head around. He's using the words of the title of the novel, he's a very proud man, but not in the sense that he thinks highly of himself. He has a great lot in life. He's gotten everything that he needed. Wonderful family. Is complex in the sense that he calculates everything. Everything he does is very logical. So he has to, if somebody comes with an issue, he has to go through the process of figuring out what it is that he has to do. And so when, am I allowed to give away the whole story? Or can we do that?
Go for it. We can always edit it.
We can always edit it. That's true.
Yes.
So the whole situation with Wickham, growing up with Wickham, who is his best friend when he's younger, and kind of they lose track of each other because of different ideologies in life. When Wickham ends up trying to steal basically the money of his sister, the fortune that she would have had, by trying to marry her, it breaks him inside, and that pride kicks in as a fail-safe in order to push out any sort of negative impact from other people that could have possibly arisen later on.
Yeah, well, we're trying to answer this question. This is the perennial question.
It is. Who is
Dr.
Mr.
Joan
Darcy?
Ray was a professor at UCCS. She's just retired. She also was the president of the Jane Austen Society of North America, or JASNA, several times. And wonderful woman, very astute, marvelous lecturer. Has probably, I don't know, read the book, who could say how many times. So I went to a series of lectures that she gave. And it's this question of, why is Mr. Darcy so rude? In that opening, those opening pages.
See, that's
See,
what
everybody
I remember from
always.
the movie. Yes.
Yeah, it's
He's
just
very
like,
rude, yeah.
what's the deal? And my take on it, not my personal take, because a number of people would definitely subscribe to this, is simply he's just been through what Nabil talks about. He's just been through the situation with Wickham. He's not in a good place. It's been a few weeks previous. He is not a man who's given to sort of easy social discourse. And, he's an alpha male. So he's come into a situation where his friend has said to him, well, I've got the best looking girl in the room, but there's the second best looking girl. You might like to dance with her. So all these things kind of come together. And that's my take on Mr. Darcy. I wanted to go a little bit deeper with him, and I'm sympathetic towards him. And so we try in the show, we have these little scenes, little pre-show and pieces where he's with his sister, and you sort of see that other side of him, that softer side. And my hope is that it kind of woos the audience at the beginning as he fumbles his way through this relationship with Elizabeth.
This is not a traditional take on Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice.
Basically, it starts off with Jane Austen and her sister, Cassandra, and they talk about this book that she's writing. She talks about how she's hating all the fiction of the time, and it's too romanticized, and she just doesn't like it. And she's talking about how most heroic male characters are just this rich guy that everyone falls in love with because he's this rich, handsome guy. Basically, it's her exploration of writing Pride and Prejudice. That's the whole show. And so it allows, for myself, I love this perspective because it allows the actor to have freedom in certain scenes to not be their character, because it's written from the perspective of Jane Austen, and there's moments, there's melodramatic moments, and there's moments where I can step outside of the character and be someone I'm actually not.
He proposes to Jane, for
Excellent.
example.
Yeah.
Because as I thought through this and went back to do this rewrite for this show, I just thought, but Jane, I'm sure she fell in love with Mr. Darcy. And that's part of, I think, trying to capture the cultural obsession that women do have with this character, which always intrigues me a little bit because, certainly in the movie productions we see, there's not a lot to like about him up front, not for the first half of the movie. And
especially when he proposes, and
right, he's
just rude the whole way.
Rude. He's not appealing.
I do remember that. It's just like,
I have no reason to marry you because you're worthless and poor and
But marry me
kind
anyway.
of plain looking. And but I can't help it. I really want to marry you. What do you say? And she just turns me down. Obviously, who wouldn't turn down that? Anyway.
So it is fun to have Jane and Cassandra. When I did Sense and Sensibility, it was really Jane mostly, and it was an exploration of her in that novel, in which she really had a lot more hand in manipulating the characters. But this time round, as any writer knows, characters will do as they please, and so it's a fun exploration of that. And my sister Andrea, who's edited for me for 8 years,
And she's still you're from New Zealand
Right.
originally, and she's still in New Zealand?
she's actually up in the Springs at the moment.
Oh,
She always comes
excellent.
up for one of
Yeah.
our new shows,
Nice,
which
nice.
is lovely. And so for me, it's a tribute a little bit to her and this partnership that we have in working together, because none of us work alone. It's not possible.
In case we forget, this is a musical, Pride and Prejudice. Music is by your daughter, Jessamine Hamer, also someone who has helped you out immensely, from what I understand, Abigail Carsich. Let's mention Abigail and perhaps something about your daughter as well.
She's the one who made the first Pride and Prejudice possible. I think I explained to you my odd ways of writing music, and she came and put it to an actual score. And then Jessamine, as she's grown, she's emerged as a singer-songwriter too. So this was her. Sense and Sensibility was all of hers, and she's made some new songs for this show. And coming in, interestingly for me, is that the young woman who played Elizabeth Burnett 5 years ago came back again to play Elizabeth, and watching her growth as an actor, and then to have her and Nabil together, close to the ages of Lizzie and Darcy. And my daughter wrote some songs, I think, to reflect that maturity, and it's lovely.
Well, this production is going to be in its second weekend, coming up on September 18th, 19th, and 20th, and I understand that you've sold out.
Well, we
some
certainly
performances.
sold out, yes, this week, and I haven't checked the numbers for the following week. We do have the lovely venue at the Black Box Theatre in Pecan Street, where the Manitou Art Theatre, I believe
It's
it was,
near
used to
Cimarron
be.
and 21st.
Yes, and it's cute and it's quirky, and I love its atmosphere. Do you like that?
I
Yeah.
love it. I love smaller
Yeah.
stages. It ends up
Yes.
you're allowed to be more intimate with the audience, and the audience
Yes.
feels involved
We
in the
love
story.
that part.
It's like another theater here, Springs Ensemble Theater. It's
Oh,
a
yes,
small
uh-huh.
venue, and when you're in there and
Yes.
and the performance is going on, you're almost right in their
Yes.
they're in your lap.
It's
Yeah.
and
Pretty much,
people,
pretty
am I a Jane Austen fan? Yes, both of the woman and of her work, and I think about them separately, but I would love to, I could do a 10-hour play just to swill around in Jane Austen. In fact, when we did our first run 5 years ago, we rented spaces in Glen Eyrie for the day and brought the cast on board, and we all played. See, I would like to play more Jane Austen. It's fun.
Well, let's touch a little bit on the Tin Roof Productions, and you started that about 5-6 years ago.
2008,
Okay,
yeah.
with your husband Frank.
Right. He has the money, and I had the vision. And he was good enough to support his
That's a good
creative,
pairing.
crazy wife. Yeah, I started because I wanted to do some Shakespeare with some local young people. And it initially was just a vehicle to have some financial integrity. So we launched it as a nonprofit.
Pride and Prejudice, a new musical play, and written and directed by you, Karen Hamer. I've been speaking to Karen Hamer, writer and director, and Nabil Ayoub, who plays Mr. Darcy, a new musical play called Pride and Prejudice by way of Tin Roof Productions.
Great.
Karen and Nabil, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
How sweet the moment you discover your life.
How sweet to love and be loved in return.
How sweet to know you're safe and healing, and to leave behind the heart that was burned.
But this is wishful thinking.
I know the truth that many tell.
What once was loved, but now is lonely.
The way it